Good morning, afternoon, sort of, midday. Donny Walker here. Stripped down this 500 earlier and ported it. Pretty easy saw to work on. Once you get the routine of the nuts and bolts where they go, they're pretty basic. There's nothing fancy about them. They're pretty easy to work on. This is Stihl spent a lot of money developing this saw. It's not the first fuel injected saw ever. Johnson had made one in the mid-50s. Don't know how well it went over, but they did. Stihl's been working on this for a long time. I remember Ron Hartel, aka Mr. Poulan, Mr. Husky, one of the best logger sports guys ever in the world. He's originally from New Zealand, lives on the island here now. Good friend of my dad's and their family. So Ron Hartel was telling me they're testing fuel injected Stihls. Oh man, back 25, 30 years ago in Australia, he's seen them over there and talked to some reps, but he never really divulged that information to a lot of people. Ron was a spokesman for Poulan and for Husqvarna. Anyway, so that's a little history on the fuel injected ones. They spent a lot of money on this thing. I've had a couple little hiccups here and there with them, but really nothing at all, really. Everything's worked very well. The only really issues I've had is with the switch mechanism here. It also has a temperature control in there. So some of them got built up a lot of sawdust in here and a lot of crap, and it was disrupting the switch from working and also disrupted the temperature sensor. That's about the only issues I've had. I've had a couple that weren't running right, but all of a sudden you go do the reset on it and just run it, let it idle for a while, then shut it off, start it up again, and they kind of reset themselves. I've had a couple weird ones like that, but overall, not a lot of problems with it. For how many there is out there in this area and the world, very little issues. Yes, they're a bit expensive, but so is the technology here. Okay, so I'm going to do an assembly and show you how it goes back together if you guys want to spend this much time watching this video. Here's the cylinder, ported, ready to go. I don't do a lot of them. A little bit of exhaust work, transfer work, and then I put a thinner base gasket in it. The original base cylinder gasket's about 19 thousandths. The ones I have made from Kinetic Gasket are 12 thousandths. So that's giving me a less squish. I don't know the exact number right now. I don't have that page in front of me. But I'm just telling you, I give it more compression, port it slightly, and that's really all I do to these. I see guys cutting bases and cutting combustion chambers. Stihl's not stupid, man. They made the saw work good and reliable. You can do stuff like that if you want. Sure, you might get some better gains, but it's just a lot of work, right? This is basic. This is like blueprinting and just adding on some performance issues, like the bark box that is on this one and the better side cover, which I'll show you at the end. So here's the cylinder, ready to go. Cleaned it all up. Piston, cleaned it all up. I don't take anything off the skirt off these, and I don't lower the intake at all on these. They got too much intake duration. I'd rather have a longer piston, actually. I'm sure there's someone out there that's already been messing around with that. But this is the way I do it, and they're reliable and they work. Okay, so first of all, we got the other cylinder gasket on it. There's our old one. Keep it for a spare for something. There's our new one. So let's get that on here. Okay, gasket in place. When I always take them apart, I always take the circlip out with a little tuning screwdriver that I made into a point. Okay, so I get in there and flick that clip out. Just watch it doesn't go flying or get stuck inside the flywheel on the magnet. We all know as mechanics that happens a lot. I put the circlip, the top end bearing, and the wrist pin in a little bag so we don't lose them or it doesn't get strewn with all the nuts and bolts, right? So, okay, let's put that on. I always have a nice clean rag with my piston here, all ready to go. So let's get our bearing in first, a little bit of assembly oil. This is my assembly bench that I've built. It's not perfect yet. I'm still gonna probably move this to this farther wall here, then put another bench along here. I got this nice one that I told you, Buckin gave me that nice big maple slab, so I'm mounting my bench grinder on it, my vise, and I have my machinist block there right now, which I just used to make sure there was no edges on this bottom of the cylinder, because I don't take any off it. I just basically just checking it for trueness, making sure there's no high spots. It's not going to make this gasket seal right. Okay, we got some assembly oil on that bearing, on the wrist pin. Our rings are on. Let's put our piston on. It's probably not the best view, but you guys get what I'm doing. You don't need me looking at my ugly face. Okay. Did a little watering the grass this morning at the new daycare we're opening, just to try to grow some grass in the wrong time of the year. 30 plus today, so I went in there early in the morning and watered it. Sorry, see me on my beach video this morning. Okay, wrist pins in. You actually have a wrist pin pusher. You can get them from Stihl. It's a service part number. I don't know what the part number is. Just make sure the pin's in all the way. Okay. Very little tools you need to work on these, and I'll show you that at the end. And here's our circlip installer. I have different sizes of these for different diameters of wrist pins. I even have one that I've had for years for go-kart engines, for my Miami Pearl engines. So this tool, you take the circlip, set it on there on this magnet. Get it positioned the right way so this pusher goes into the tool here. Watch, it probably won't work right as I'm talking, right? I can usually get it perfect every time. Get it in there, push it almost towards the end. Okay. And then simply put it against the piston here, that holder part, then push the inner mechanism in. Click, click, snap in there. Have a visual look. Make sure that clips in there perfect. Okay, so there's your tool for that. And I take my pointed tuning screwdriver and I just make sure that thing moves just a bit so it's locked in. Yes, it is locked in perfect. Years ago, before we had these tools, trying to fight these non-eared circlips in there, you know, I had lots of marks in my hands from that, poking myself and trying to get it in there just right. I was pretty good at it after a while, but these tools are much better. Okay, pistons installed. Arrow goes towards the exhaust, every one on a two-stroke. Pretty much all two-strokes I've ever dealt with do that. And you got to make sure they do have the arrow on there. I had an aftermarket piston a while ago that didn't even have an arrow on there, but you just look at the way your ring gaps are so it doesn't catch in a port, and you can figure that out, right? Okay, a little bit of oil on the piston. Rings are moving freely. Now the cylinder, we're going to mount the carburetor. Look at that. There's the carburetor, the fuel injection module. Oh, my dad can't believe that they have these out here, these computer saws now. He's like, glad I'm retired. I don't want nothing to do with those things. I'm like, yeah, fair enough. But I still have to, because I still got to make a living. Okay. Let's get this baby on here. Three screws. The fourth screw you put on after you put the cover on with the carb boot. So you get your three screws in there. I use the T27's, the dominant Torx wrench for this. Fits out every screw except for this one little wire screw, which I use this Stihl like a T10 or something to fit that one little screw. So get these on there, make sure the gasket part's in there right, that seals it. I try to keep this nice and clean. Okay, so that part's on. Now we can get our cover where the carb boot is. And our then we'll put our carb boot and this guard on it, this shield on it here that holds the carb boot down as you put the screw into the last part of the injector housing there. Okay, let's get our boot on here. Haven't had a boot rip on these yet. Always can have something happen down the road. These are the new saw to the woods, so you start seeing problems after, a few months and a year or so, Okay, I got this. These can be a little bit of a grunt. get that in there. Pull there. Push down on it, make sure it's sealed good. Okay. Push it down good like that. Make sure the bolt hole lines up. Now you can put the 4 screw in that holds in there. It's the only little 4mm one I got here, the longer one. Okay. Once you do tons of these saws over and over, you get to know where every fastener goes. You don't need to lay them out or anything. You basically just have them in a box. You grab the ones you know that are right. You know, I've done thousands of saws in my lifetime. Okay, so there's that screw on. Now the cylinder is ready to go back on. Okay, a little bit of oil on it too. Who cares if it smokes a little bit at the beginning? Okay. Now there's different ways of putting the piston under the cylinder. This one I'm going to use, you know, the old clamp. I got all these clamps for different sizes of pistons, right? Ring collapsers. Okay, get your rings. Make sure the rings are on properly too. You make sure that they fit that dowel, like with the ring locator. Sometimes you can put it upside down. You won't get the cylinder on, and you'll break your ring. So we'll just recheck it. Make sure it's okay. Now let's put our ring compressor on. Okay, holding it tight. I hold it at kind of top dead center. I grab the cylinder with my other hand. I set it on there. Then I use my right hand, my fingers under the piston, my thumb on top, and simply push it down. Done. There's some saws where you'll use like this bridge here to hold the piston steady as you put it on, to get it on properly, for different models. And then this one too for different ones like 261s and 462s. Okay, so our piston's on the cylinder. Now let's grab our cylinder bolts. They're the only 6mm bolts on this saw, so there's 4 of them. They're blue colored, so you shouldn't go wrong. Shouldn't, okay? Always something goes on though. Great saw these. You know, guys are running them with 32-inch and 36-inch light bars. Maybe they're not quite the best for the 36 as the 32, but guys are doing it here. Obviously they put a performance exhaust on it. Some have got them ported, some haven't. You know, not all of them need to be done. You don't really. I like to do them just because there is imperfections, so we're kind of blueprinting plus doing a few things to it, like I said, with the compression bump up and some slight porting. Nothing else you can do. You can't rejet the carburetor or anything because there isn't one. So let's get this torque down. What's the torque of the cylinder? There's a Newton meter thing in Stihl's workshop manual, but I've done lots. I just tighten them up good. I even talked to a Husqvarna engineer one time. I said, what's the torque of the cylinder? As tight as you can do it with your wrist. So I go for the first click of my bad wrist, and it's good to go. Probably around 120 inch-pounds. Sure is turning it over because these have this your generator and control module underneath. It's really hard to turn over. So when I do time these with my degree wheel up here, I take the flywheel off so it spins around nice and free, right? Okay, so there we go. Cylinder's on. Let's get our wiring hooked up, and then we're going to assemble and put the tank on. These are pretty simple, man. Not much to them. Once you do a bunch, you're going to figure it out. It's always nice working on new ones, or fairly new ones. This one's been ran. This is for Patrick Whalen from Skillman, New Jersey. Hey, Patrick. How's it going today? This is your saw being done here, buddy. It's July 5th today. Hope you had a good July 4th down there. And everyone else. Okay, we got our little red wire, which is our main wire to the injector. And they also have a ground strap here. So used ones, when I work on them, I make sure these ground straps aren't broken, these wires aren't shaped anywhere. Okay, so that part's on, and that's our plug into our control module. Get this other wire fed in here. I use this tool from Stihl. It's like a blunt screwdriver, so you can't rip anything. I use it for pushing the wires in. It's a part number you can get from Stihl too. Can't remember exactly. Used to be written on there. Just handy. You can just take an old screwdriver and blunt it up like that. Okay, so that wire's on. Cylinder's on. Okay, now we're ready to grab our tank and set it and get it on there. You got it. I take the handlebars off, man. It's the easiest thing to do on these. Okay, so first of all, what I do, just make sure it's all clean. Give her a little blow here. Okay, so we're just gonna slide the tank down here, and I like to just put this one screw in for this one AV mount in the back here. These AV mounts have been pretty good. I've maybe had a couple guys break them, but that's because they either the saw ripped out of their hand when they're bucking a huge log, or something fell on it, you know. So I put this screw in. You get it lined up right, just to hold the tank steady while I hook everything else up. Okay. Okay, let's put that in there. Tighten it right up so you don't forget, actually. That can happen, especially when we're doing a video. Okay, pull our car boot through. It's pretty easy. You almost just press on it and it kind of sucks in. You grab it with your little hemostats here. Just kind of pull it till it comes through, okay? Now, next thing you want to do is make sure your pulse line's hooked up underneath. Couple saws I did for a guy. One saw I did for a guy, for some reason it didn't get hooked up and the saw didn't run right. It'll still start, but it won't run right. Okay, pulse line on. Let's get our main fuel line on. They're all pretty easy, man. And then our purge system line goes back into the tank after you purge it up. Okay, lines are back on. Pulse line's on, the one screw's in. Let's route this wire over to where it goes. This comes from the generator, main wiring harness. Okay, feed it all through its little spots. Push it in with your pusher. Make sure it's stuck in there good. They got real fine wires, but they stand up pretty good. They got them wrapped up pretty nice. Okay, let's plug that one in, black to black. All right, get it the right way around. Okay, and they got all these little holders too to hold these wires in so they don't fall out and get caught in a brush or anything. Okay. Blue one in, and the other white one is your switch and temperature wire. Okay. Little screw in here, one more little 4mm screw that holds this shield on that holds the injector on. It's the only little small 4mm there is. I'm doing everything by hand mostly. What I do with my cylinder bolts and stuff like that, but a lot of times I'll use my beautiful snap-on impact battery one with my T27 driver you can get from Stihl as well. You got to have one of these, man, for disassembling and assembling. You can't be using T-wrenches all the time. You take too long. Okay, wires are back on. Fuel lines are all plumbed up. Let's get our handlebars on. And then the rest of it here. Okay, handlebars. Full wrap, pretty much all we run here, of course. Come on, Fumbly. Fumbly, Donny. Let's get this tank drop down a little bit. There we go. Oh yeah, one day goes easy, next day it doesn't. Holy, ever see a guy put a pair of handlebars on before? As bad as this. There we go. There we go. Gotta get these just right. Get just right that it all just slams on. Whew, that was weird. Usually I do that way quicker. Anyways, because I'm on camera. I'm shy. Okay, get the couple bolts in the front. Now you can use the impact. Okay. Suck them up. Make sure your inside spring for your front AV mount. This has got the standard one on it, but you can put a 661 on the front here. 661 AV mount. It makes it a little stronger if you're running big bars. Just it stops that noodling. I don't know if I don't really think they vibrate anymore, but just check that screw. So the suspension kit people are buying is basically a 661 spring, and then they offer the bigger white piece in the side here too. Okay, the little cushioner thing, and the bigger black thing is on the side. But basically, if you just buy the 661 spring and the cushion piece, it pretty much does the same. You just don't get those black rubbers, which I don't know, maybe they're needed, but I don't think they really are. Okay, so all 4 screws are on. Double check with the T-wrench. I never like to go too hard with my impact on these plastic self-tapping screws, especially because I don't want to break my end of my Torx, and then I know they're properly fastened. Okay, so now let's get our top AV mount on. This one, there's 2 different size screws. The shorter one goes onto the top of the cylinder. The longer one goes onto the handlebar. I use Loctite red. I don't use a ton, just enough. Some from the factory still comes with a lot of Loctite on it. Some stuff, you know. Some of the muffler bolts are hard to get off. They really coat them with this green type Loctite. Husqvarna really doesn't use Loctite. If you notice, some of their screws has like a Loctite on it already, which is like some sort of coating. Where still they use quite a bit of Loctite. Reason I was told from Husqvarna is because some people are allergic to Loctite, so they're just protecting their workers don't get allergic to it. Okay, there's our 2 screws in for our top AV mount on our cylinder. Double check. Okay, good. Spark plug. Check your gap. Make sure it hasn't messed up from sitting there. Get bashed around. 5/8 or whatever millimeter, 16 millimeter to tighten the plug up. And there's something a guy needs to be changing every month on these. Every month if you're using this thing steady. Spark plug and fuel filter. Simple, cheap, but everyone's too lazy to do it. Okay, so that's all back on. We know that's all hooked up. Let's get our starter back on. Okay, starter has 3 5mm bolts and then the one longer one on the side here. So grab them all, throw them in there, into the side. Run these in with the impact, just so they touch. Okay, double check the T-bar. Handlebars are on. Let's get our throttle plate in here. Okay. Let's first get our little round washer that makes it seal properly. Little sleeve in the boot. This little throttle valve on there. And then our filter holder. Uses a couple aluminum 5mm screws. They use aluminum screws for the crankcase bolts and these bolts on pretty much most all the new Pro Stihls now. So you got to reuse, if you're doing a crankcase job, it comes with new bolts because aluminum bolts stretch. So when they're torqued or reused again, they can get weak. Tighten those up, good to go there. Okay, now let's get a muffler on it. Yeah, where did I put it? Should be right here somewhere. There it is. Alrighty. There's our muffler. It's got the screws in it. Okay. Got your 2 2 mains. You can tell the main ones because they're a little darker because they run them at the factory, so they got a little bit of, just a little soot on them, right? Okay, get those in there. Let's get our gasket and our heat shield on there. Okay. A little bit of red Loctite, not a ton, just enough. Don't need a lot on there. You might break them getting them back out if you got to take it back out. Most my customers on the island here, loggers, you know, they'll never even take the muffler off unless something gets smashed and they got to take it off. But you know, they're pretty much the lifetime of the saw. You know, like I say, unless it gets damaged. Okay. You know, unless the guy's putting in some new rings in or rebuilding it or something's messed up, then you would be taking it off, but you shouldn't really have to. Just leave this on for almost 2 years and get your money's worth. Okay, bark box on, which is as this fella wanted. Some guys lately, I've been doing it the old school way where I make this a great big larger outlet, then I put a nice outlet here so it blows straight out so it's not blowing up on the side of your face, which these do when they're stock. That's why they have this deflector here as well for the hot air across the cylinders don't come in your face. So stock mufflers okay for a half wrap, but full wrap when you're falling, they're not quite the desired type muffler. So doing it the old school way, putting that bigger one out here, one on this side like I do on other saws, just with the regular plate on the front. A lot of guys like, they don't, you know, the bark box is great. It's a great, easy bolt-on performance. But some guys find it a little irritating. Not everyone, but just telling you, okay? So if you want it done it the old way, I actually have them ready these days at our shop. So you can phone Walker Saw Shop or online ordering and order the old school type muffler done, ready to go. I had a couple there the other day. Hopefully they're not sold, or I'll have to make a couple more. But yeah, these are just easy putting on bark boxes, especially on the 462 model. Okay, so a little rad Loctite on these two. Don't need a ton. Keep saying that, probably hurt enough from you, eh? Okay, run this up. Your one bottom bolt, for some reason, has a washer on it. I don't know what the reasoning is from the factory there. It's the only model it does. Tighten them babies up. I don't know what dogs this fellow wants. I'll have to read his work order. Let's see. Probably none because he shipped the saw here. Probably didn't want to rip the box open. Okay, mufflers on. Carburetor's on. It doesn't have a carburetor. Okay, let's get our top cover on. Some people have had problems with these top covers where they, after a while, they get loose and start moving around. These little pegs that hold it down and these bushings, they wear off, so this thing's flopping around. This little locking mechanism here works well, but I changed and I put a bolt through here with a nut and washer, and I suck this thing down and it doesn't come loose. But then it's hard to, you got to have a 10mm driver to take the top cover off to get your spark plug out. Only downfall of that is. Okay. On. Forgot the compression release. Let's get that baby in there. Some of them I block the compression release off. And then I've been putting a nickel, Canadian nickel in that hole. I glue it in. Oh, can't quite line that up. Let's take this cover back off first. Look at that. I thought it was perfect. Eh? Who's perfect out there? No one. Okay, there we go. Get that in there. 13 mil you need for that. Okay, top cover back on. Come on, baby. Come on, baby, do the twist. Okay, air filter cover. These, some guys have gone to the foam system, or whatever you call those. I forget the name of them. Something flow. Anyways, or this washer here in the center, I put 2 of them on so it stops the fines from going through that center hole. I find that works good, and your cover fits a little tighter. So if you want to do that, grab an extra one of those next time you're in your local saw shop. Okay, that on. There's this guard that goes on the side here. That's just stops that hot air from blowing in at you. Okay, that fits on there. Snap, crackle, pop. Okay. There we go. Done. Tap out. Pretty much 30 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, another thing I do besides doing that top cover fix with that bolt, I put the thicker bar plate on it, like off of 461 or 066 or any of those models that have the thicker one. They're trying to do everything so lightweight on these. This thing wears out pretty quick, and it's and it doesn't take much for the chain to wear through this crankcase, and it starts leaking oil. Seen that a few times now. So put the better bar plate on, and it'll probably last you almost the life of the saw, or pretty darn close, anyways. And the better side cover that Gordy makes, which is great. Love it. He's got these for every model of Pro Saw Stihl now. Definitely needed, man. The original factory ones are only about this high, and if you don't put a dust flap on it, when you're falling with it on the side, just blows everything in your face. So yeah, I'll take this back to Walker Saw Shop today, along with all these other ones on the floor there that I've done, and a few extra cylinders that are in boxes there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, taking 9 units back. And I'll grab another half a dozen or so. It's enough of Donny Walker. Told you I'd do a saw video today. Hey, this morning at the beach doing the old Parksville tourism thing. I love my area where I live in. If anyone ever wants to come for a vacation, I should be a tour guide, man. I know this island like the back of my hand. You know, that beautiful place I went to the other day, that Spider Lake. What a gem of a place, man. You know, just beautiful areas. So yeah, anyone ever want to come up this way, you look me up, man. I'll take you around or tell you where to go. Not that kind of way, though. Anyways, keep your saw on wood, stick in the ass, rubbing the road. Have a great day. It's Wednesday, right? Yeah, so it's hump day. Another weekend coming up. Things to do, eh? So check out walkersawshop.com online store. I'm going for a drive into town. See Johnny and the boys. Hey, Johnny. Have a great day. Bye. Love you, Mom and Dad.